doing this alongside. He has wealth of knowledge on animal husbandry as well, and he'll be doing this as well. And at some point during our conversation, we'll go to questions and answers. We would also like for you to please make use of the chat section if you have any questions and tipping questions. Just drop them in the chat section. So when we come to the question and answer segment, we can, take your questions. So firstly, let me introduce some of these amazing speakers that we have today. Already have them here. Firstly is Mr. Mohammed Damaka Abubakar. He is the CEO of L&Z Integrated Farms and is joining us here today. He is already here. And we have Mr. Mustafa Abubakar, is the CEO of Maizube Integrated Farms. And we've also got Dr. Ikechi Abuba. Dr. Ikechi Abuba is the senior lecturer at the Rivers State University academic and is the academic member at York St. John University, advisory board member at SECTSCA, which is Saudi Education Technology Collective Alliance. I'll still let you introduce yourself in the best way you would like for us to see you, because there's lots that you would probably want us to know. But please, we also like us to keep it very short and simple so that we can go into the section. into the section. So I'm going to give us an introduction about what we are going to focus on very briefly. But before then, I would like our panelists to please kindly introduce yourself for us. And I'll start with you, Mr. Mustafa Abubakar. Mr. Mustafa.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm Mustafa Abubakar, Managing Director, CEO of Maizube Farms Nigeria Limited. Well, I have a background in the financial sector in terms of regulation, and now I'm into the farming. Maizube Farm is actually a dairy farm, but it's integrated as well. We're involved in backward integration, and we are focused based on dairy. To be honest, we do powder, we do milk, yogurt, a lot of dairy products, and we have supporting products such as greenhouses, banana orchard, and we do other extension services as well, like consultation. We do animal breeding and more.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Abubakar. Thank you for joining us today. I'll go to you, Mr. Mohammed Daka Abubakar.
Yeah, I asked. Good. I don't know. Am I on? Good morning, all.
You're on.
Yes, I'm not Dakar. I am Damaka. I've asked Ime to correct that. I'm sure she has not made that correction. That's why you are still pronouncing my middle name as Dakar. It's not Dakar. It's Damaka. I'm Muhammad Damaka Abubakar, please. So,
right.
And yeah, I'm the CEO of L&Z Integrated Farms, a dairy farm based in Kano. We're involved in the entire value chain from production through processing to marketing. So we engage in the entire streams of upstream, midstream, and downstream.
Right. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Mr. Mohammed Abubakar. Dr. Ikechi Abuba as well is here. Kindly introduce yourself to us, sir.
Very much, Elizabeth and Adetola. Yeah, my name is Dr. Ikechi Abuba, and I am an academic. I'm a researcher. Interestingly, I started to farm very early in life, and I started at the University of Nigeria campus where I grew up. So I got very deep into farming as a child, at the primary and secondary school, and that was what gave me that passion in agriculture. So I am not a product of afterthoughts. I didn't go in for agriculture. After maybe I failed a certain course. So, and I've been mentoring a lot of farmers around Africa. I am a co-founder of the Africa Organization of Technology in Agriculture, which is registered in Rwanda. And we've delivered 2 conferences already in Kigali. We are planning for the next one in Kenya. And yeah, I really do a lot in food and agricultural systems development. And in Nigeria also, of course, I am also a faculty member with Rome Business School and University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. Yeah, so and yes, I work as advisory board member for a lot of organizations, and I am very passionate about advocating for the rights of farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikechi Abuba. Thank you very much to our lovely panelists. So, but first, what is animal husbandry? We're talking animal husbandry. We're talking about innovating for livestock excellence from farm to market. Now, someone who is joining here is first wondering, who has no idea what is animal husbandry. Are we talking matrimony here or something? Simply put, animal husbandry is a branch of agriculture with concern with raising animals for meat, fiber, milk, or other products, everything from daycare to management to production, etc. That's what animal husbandry is. I'm just going to provide a little bit of context to why we are having this conversation today. It's very important for us to have this conversation today because we know that there are lots of challenges that come with having to practice animal husbandry itself. There are lots of challenges. However, there's lots of potential in this sector. So what we are here to do today is to inform our audience and to glean from the knowledge that you, our panelists, have, and make sure that everyone who participates in this masterclass is able to possibly start an animal husbandry tomorrow. People like me, people like everyone who is here. So that's what we're about today. So I'll yield the mic to Mr. Adetola or Onielu.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And I was really excited when Mr. Mustafa and Mr. Boka introduced themselves and they mentioned dairy. And for me, I feel our audience would maybe we'll get some virtual yogurt served while the program goes on. And I know that Dr. Gruber also has a lot of experience in not just in the academic, but he is a practicing farmer. And so I'll start my question from Mr. Mustafa. And I know that you are at the very top in that place. Mezube Farms is not a small business; it's a household name. And I'll throw my first question to you: like, what are the key components of an animal husbandry business? Like, as for a new entrant, I need you to break it down for us as simply as possible. What are the key components that a new entrant to the animal husbandry business? What are the key components that you need to understand about the business? What are the core components of the animals around the business? Mr. Mustafa, sir.
Thank you very much, Stola. So for having a animal husbandry business, one of the first things you need to have is land. Without the land, you actually can't do any form of farming or keeping an animal. So you need to have that sorted before you actually get your animal. So be it either it's going to be a cow, it's going to be a goat, sheep, chicken, you need a land. So, I mean, of course, it's just space at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be like a huge area. So, and then of course, after that, then you have to be set, you have to know what sort of animal you want to keep in the first place, actually, because there are dimensions to the space you have to keep for each animal. And also, another thing that you have to realize, the feed. Feed is very important. Before you get your animal, you have to have source of feed, because without feed, you'll be unable to keep that animal and to survive. Because as us human beings, if you don't eat, I mean, you don't have energy, and how long can you go without food? And of course, it's not just any type of feed as well. You have to know the certain type of feed that gives a different balanced diet. Either for energy, protein, for terms of development, growth, and more. And also not just that land as well. Okay, the animal. So you have to have the right source of animal. Of course, keeping the animal, you need to have services that will help you in terms of the nutrition, in terms of health. These are all very, very important aspects of having to start an animal husbandry.
Wow, thank you very much. I think you gave a very good overview. And just to cap, right, you mentioned the resources you need. You need land. And I believe from yesterday's session, we were taught that when you want to go into agribusiness, it's best to save capital by not going to buy land. You can lease land and and the likes, for example, especially if you want to go into crop production, you can lease land and everything. But you mentioned something very critical, which I want to take, and I want to take that question to Dr. Aguba. He mentioned feed. And what is in from the poultry industry, right? I remember that a bag of broiler starter across board should not be less than 21,000 as we speak. And when you compare this, that's in the Southwest here. The price varies across the location where you are. But when you look at this and compare it year on year with the price of the bag of feed last year, you would scream if you are a poultry farmer, right? And so, Dr. Aguba, I want to ask, what is happening in the feed industry?
Thank you very much. I think generally, when you are into animal husbandry, feed or nutrition is key, as Mustafa mentioned. But there are other factors that you need to consider. There's environment, there's also genetics. So I would like to look at the broad, I want to look at this thing broadly, that with good feed, if the genetic is wrong, you can't get the productivity will equally be wrong. You can't bring a local chicken and just give her the broiler starter, whatever, and you expect to have a table size broiler after 7 days. It may take years, no matter how much or how good the feed is. The same with dairy animals. The local zebus we have here, no matter how much feed you give, no matter how good the environment is, once the genetic is wrong, you can't get its full potential. So the milk yield will remain capped at 2 to 3 liters max. But with improved genetics, you can bring in good nutrition, and then you get value for your money. So it's a combination of 3 major things: environment, genetics, and nutrition. So coming back to your question, what is good for the goose is good for the gander, what's good for poultry is good for dairy. Is garbage in, garbage out. If you give good nutrition to your animals, you expect good output. In the case of poultry, is it broiler? You're looking at getting to a table size at certain time as fast as possible at a minimum cost, or egg laying. You need your birds to give you maximum maybe 95% capacity and take a long time to continue to produce eggs for you in order for you to make a good return on your investment. Same with dairy. You need to have a good milk yield. What you have probably in some climes is 20, 30 liters per cow per day in 2 milking stations. In Nigeria, you do 3, 4, 5 milking stations. You can have more than 3 liters from the local zebu breed we have here. So you need to either improve your breed through artificial insemination or even natural mating with an exotic bull in order for you to have a hybrid that will give you good milk yield. It may not give you the 20 liters of tens abroad, but it will give you some good volume that will at least take you to above break-even point, more so when you're talking about cost of feeding, as you rightly know. In poultry, the cost of feeding, yes, is getting it's something else. It costs a lot of poultry farmers to close shop. But I always advise people: you don't have to be master of all. You don't have to be empty, and sorry to use that word, that everywhere you go. No, concentrate in one place and just be master of one thing. I would think that now some people have realized the outgrower scheme works perfectly well, where you have some people that will benefit in your own agribusiness by giving them some day-old chicks, and then they now take them, if they are broilers, take them table size, and you take from them, or you now become an aggregator of egg by having a kind of an ecosystem established where eggs are being you have number of outgrowers doing egg laying business, and you aggregate from them, and you go. So this will reduce pressure on you while you only concentrate on margin, rather than taking so much interest in investing in the production itself. So the value chain, as I mentioned earlier, all the streams are upstream, midstream, and downstream. And both poultry and dairy, or even general livestock, you can take part in at any point of the value chain. You don't have to go start from and do it all, from production to aggregation to processing to marketing. You can take any of them. Then you can be backward integrating gradually as you strengthen your position in any of the point of the value chain. So you can either start from production and then get some people to offtake, or you can be the offtaker and then look forward to backward integrating into production. This is my advice to upcoming generation. And feed is very, very expensive. And unfortunately, the system does not allow you to say, okay, look, feed, what are the elements that cause this feed cost? Probably you say maize, soya meal. These are the major cost elements. You say, okay, why don't I backward integrate into producing them? Probably I have land either. But what I have done over time, and I've established that it makes no business sense for you to go and cultivate this if you can now mop it at the harvest time and put it in a warehouse. It makes more business sense, unfortunately.
Mr. Mohammed, I like the dimension you're taking the conversation already, right? And I would hold on to that your line of thought while I come back to you with the next with another question. But Dr. Ikechi, right? I threw a question, right? And I like the fact that Mr. Mohammed jumped on it. And this next question I want to ask you from your experience, and I'm going to ask Mr. Mustafa that same question before I give the mic to Elizabeth, right? Do you think a young graduate, a young upcoming graduate, can it venture into the dairy sector and start operations?
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, let me just briefly scratch what the previous question. You know, there's serious competition with the components or the elements of what is used, the raw materials, which of course most of them are cereal based, and they are used in producing the same feed. And also, man is also yearning for food. We know the high cost of food is very alarming. And so anyway, that's the competition I'm talking about. Then coming back to the young graduates, yes, of course, like what I'm doing right now with young people, I developed a strategy called brain reengineering, concept and reimagination, which is a strategy for entrepreneurship development and youth engagement in agriculture. I begin to speak to students a lot, with the platforms where I'm, at the River State University, at the Rome Business School, at York St. John, at University of Birmingham, and even at Kavala International University and many other platforms, and, at the EU Tech Chamber. I speak to them that young people need to become more entrepreneurial. There's a lot of opportunity in the ecosystem for dairy big business. First of all, what does dairy give? The meat, the milk. Then also looking at some points which Mustafa Abubakar mentioned with respect to getting the raw materials or the closeness to where infrastructure is, because young people, they are captivated by technology. So these times, like recently, we encouraged the Dutch community. They are so interested in coming to Nigeria to set up some dairy program. And they actually came and they got their government, some partners, they got their government interested, and their High Commission, they came and installed, some dairy programs. But I kept telling them that what is the strategy to get to these young people? Get to the young people and looking at the whole activity from production to the end user. So we need to identify the supply chain properly, supply chain actors, supply chain operations, and then begin to unlock the technology which they can use. And I'm not talking about just sophisticated technology. There are also other indigenous technology areas, because we don't need to force sophisticated technology on African communities. We have about 54 countries of Africa, or 55, and in sub-Saharan Africa, we have about 49 or so. So, well, we are Nigeria, the giant of Africa, which is all in sub-Saharan Africa, which is yeah. So we need to do become more entrepreneurial, like I said, and then create that awareness and opportunity. So that's what the brain engineering strategy stands to present to them.
Achieve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Before I yield to Elizabeth, my last question, just to set this conversation right. I know that a lot of our young people, right, in the poultry sector, people start with 100 beds, 200 beds, they scale up, they have 1,000 beds, 2,000, and some even have up to 10,000, 20,000 beds these days. Mr. Mustafa and Mr. Mohammed, right? You are experts. You've built a very, very successful enterprise in the dairy sector. And from the top where you are looking at having a bird eye view, what are some of the areas that you feel that if I was younger, I could have explored this opportunity in the dairy sector? Just very, very short and punchy ones. What are some of the areas in the dairy sector that you feel our young graduates, our young entrepreneurs can venture into? Mr. Mustafa first, sir.
Thank you. So the spectrum of the industry is actually broad, but then little at the same time. So one just has to make a conscious effort of what stage he wants to participate in. So there is the upstream, there is the midstream, and there is the downstream. So, I mean, research is I think a lot of the youth now, we actually get involved in research as well. In terms of what the professor mentioned about the artificial intelligence right now, a lot of people get involved with this artificial intelligence as they do. So it's actually a new side that helps in the dairy industry. So dairy or poultry, whatever, because in terms of tracking of animals, knowing where your animals are, it detects health, the feeding time, the milk yield. I mean, it's just technology has gone too far now. It makes it very easy for one to do. And as well, the quality of feed. One little test can tell you whatever content you have in your feed that you have. And also the environment as well, the prediction in terms of rain, drought, all that. This can all play a huge part. And I know with the trend in technology right now, I think it's a very easy industry to play a part in.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mustafa, sir, your thoughts on this?
Mr. Mohammed, Mustafa just finished speaking. So I think if I was to be asked by a young man in the dairy industry, where would I advise him to invest in? I think I would encourage him to go into production, and also I will encourage him to go into aggregation. These are areas that, with the current happening in the dairy industry, it's going to sell very well. More so, the imports, because of the dollar issue, is becoming extremely difficult to get in dairy products into the country at the rate at which dollar is going. So you will have a local production of dairy, particularly raw milk. It's going to help a lot. It fetches good money now. Some 5-6 years ago, it wouldn't be, because you're competing with the cheap products. But even the cheap products now are becoming so expensive because of the dollar issue. So local production is encouraged. So you can start by getting a local breed of cow and then crossbreed to see that you improve on the genetics of the animal, so that over time it improves the milk yield. And also, if you cannot afford to buy a cow at a start, you can go into aggregation. What it means is identify those that have cows and then set up some milk collection facilities around them, and then be off-taking and then selling to processors. But I wouldn't advise anybody to go into processing. This is a bad time for processing. Even those that are in processing are finding it extremely difficult. So the other aspect is what I would encourage young people to go into. Thank you.
Okay,
Dr. Kechi, I can see your hand. Yes, Dr. Kechi, yes. And Elizabeth,
Yeah,
over to you.
thank you very much. I just wanted to add to what my fellow panelists have said. Yeah, in production, like Mustafa Mohammed had also buttressed the fact of technology, because we have farm management software, which some companies have also encouraged, that, outside of Nigeria. And even in Nigeria, we have a lot of young people because they love a more scientific and technologically driven livestock systems. So that also can be an opportunity for them. But I also encourage young people to form cooperatives, to form partnerships, so that they can pool their resources together. There are many young people who want to get into agriculture, and they keep asking you, we want to get into livestock and dairy farming as well. Like Mohammed mentioned, that he will encourage more in production. So we need to identify the areas within that production, because when you talk about production, you are talking about the supply chain, distribution. After production, what happens? The end user as well. So in processing is also very important, because when you talk about processing, those guys in the market that sell meat also, they are also in processing. They sell, because after dairy production, what happens to the meat? Yeah, so the demand is always high. So, and we need to connect. We need to present the market, also market opportunities to the young people. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Dr. Ikechi. I like how this conversation has been going. We've spoken about local production, encouraging local production, encouraging young people to be more entrepreneurial, brain re-engineering, just like Dr. Ikechi mentioned. Mr. Mohammed has also mentioned starting small. But I'm looking from the standpoint of being a young person. We've talked about all of these things. If you could please answer this question. In 2024, September, if you want to start going to animal husbandry, how much would be a modest budget to actually begin with? Like if you could just break it down for us, and I'll just go with you, Dr. Ikechi.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for that's for animal husbandry. Well, it depends on the aspect of animal. Like we have poultry, we have swine, for the monogastrics.
Yeah.
We have those piggery, and I know that the demand for piggery product is higher now because it's cheaper also. And we have also, the cattle side, where we've mentioned dairy, we mentioned for meat, beef and all of that. And what about goatry? We've not even mentioned goatry. That's where we get chevron. Chevron is the meat of goats. And then what about, those other areas? Then when, most people go in for poultry because it's a bit cheaper. It's a bit cheaper, and when we form like cooperatives, we can pull our resources together. Maybe, well, it all depends on the approach that they are adopting. Yeah. So, but for me, I can say maybe even 50,000 can go. And then, of course, we talked about feed before. Feed, like I mentioned about being more entrepreneurial, being more creative in also formulating feeds. We must not patronize feed, inorganic feeds. We can also come up with feeds which of course we've been advocating for the young people. Waste from from agriculture can be used. In fact, we are talking about that. We are not just talking, we have that initiative. I'm working with some Rwanda CS and Gemma. CS and Gemma is generating feeds, generating also organic fertilizer from human waste. So so if 50,000, even they can pull their resources together and, form that. And they will, I'm telling you, the market is massive. The demand is high. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ikechi. I wonder if either of Mr. Mustafa or Mohammed want to add anything to this before I just go to my next question. Okay. Okay.
So for me, it's a tough question to see how much you're going to start with, to be honest, because there are different levels to it. It's not easy to buy. For me, I'm in the dairy sector, so I'll talk about the dairy sector. To have a cow, it's an investment. So, and as with every day you go to the market, even as a local cow, the price changes. So I think the minimum I see you can get a cow per se right now, a valuable cow that will do something for you, either it's meat or for milk. I can see you have to have about 350 to 400,000 naira.
Okay.
And of course, you have to source for the feed as well. So these are all different aspects that you have to look at.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. So Dr. Ikechi obviously has
I think let me add. I think Mustafa has been very modest. Looking at, if you bring a 350 or 400 cow, how much liter will that give you in a day? And how long will it take you to recoup your investment? And is it realistic to do business with that? Mustafa and I know that we recently brought in cows, and I think the value of each cow now on our farm, it will shock you. Mustafa, help us there. What is the value of each of our Frisian of our JC cow now?
We don't want to scare them.
Okay, it's 10 million naira per piece. Let me scare them. That's the value of one cow on our farm now, 10 million naira. So when you're talking of 50,000, I really don't know. And dairy it can't even buy you a bag of feed for one cow for a day. So maybe poultry, and even poultry, as you know, a bag of feed 21,000. So it takes you, it can only fetch you 2 bags for just to buy feed. Unless if you're going to be in business of buying and selling of feed, it's also a part of the value chain anyway. But I think to me, I will think is aggregation. That's what should happen. You should, so even without too much capital, you can go and find people that are doing it and connect the market. Be the link. The linkage will expose you, will give you, it will teach you the rudiment of the business. And then you can come back and start backward integrating into whatever area you want to go into. But at least understand the market fundamentally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohammed. I mean, you all have actually really broken it down. Dr. Ikechi started from, speaking about poultry. He was not really focusing on, he was talking about poultry, and you can start at 50,000. But then Mr. Mustafa came and told us, no, you've given us your own angle. But it's very interesting to understand that at the end of everything, just understanding the market, aggregation, all of this. I hope that everyone who is on this platform is learning from this. So my next question will be, having done all of this, understanding what budget to start with, understanding how the market works and all of that, what for you, since you are already in the industry, you are practicing, you've seen some of these challenges, you've seen the way to go, what would you say is the best way to ensure a business model that is profitable and sustainable? And I'll go with you, Mr. Mustafa.
Apologies, I lost a bit of the network. Can you just repeat that?
So I said that what is for someone like you who has been practicing for years now, you have seen some of the challenges, you have seen the gains. So for someone who wants to start out, what do you say is the best way to structure your business model to ensure that it's profitable and sustainable?
Okay. First things first, I think you have to have knowledge of the industry you're getting into. If you don't have the knowledge, you just don't get involved because you feel someone is doing it and is making money or it sounds exciting. You have to have proper knowledge of the whole system. And knowledge as well is in difference, the knowledge of the practice, knowledge of the type of animal, knowledge of the sales, and of course, knowledge of the policies revolving around it. Because a policy can destroy your business in a matter of a day, or it can boost your business in the blink of a second. So you need to actually keep abreast in all the policies that you have. And you need to know the core value chains involved. You know, if you don't know the value chains involved, I mean, you are not likely to succeed as much as you should. Some people have lucky escape, you know, but one of course, security measures as well that you have to take in your own department. These are all very important things. And of course, financing, you know, this is very, very important, because without financing, you really cannot become very successful. So, and one of the things, again, I would say, rather than focusing on competition, partnership is the most important thing at the moment. Competition is good, but partnership is where you grow, because there is knowledge sharing, there is resource sharing, there is I mean, you name it. So just like Mr. Abubakar said, in terms of aggregation, you know, it's a very good link. You don't have to have any animal, but you're able to link the market. And in that way, if you are a good aggregator, you'll be able to venture into either processing, producing, marketing. You know, you grow organically, you know. And of course, like I said, talking about the finance again, having to know where you get your finance. Family is always a good one option. At this rate now, as the economy is not going, I will not advise for you to say you're going to a commercial lending process, because that's a killer on its own. And banks have not been the most friendly people in the industry of dairy, you know. But of course, there are development finance institutions that are able to help in that. You know, I mean, I have to say, like the CBN Uncle Borrower Scheme, the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture. We have other NGOs that also have their own ways in helping in financing. So this is something that you have to have the knowledge of as well. If you don't have that knowledge, it would be impossible for you to actually breach into the sector successfully.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. So speaking of knowledge financing, I know that Mr. Adetola has some more questions for you on this, but I want to come to you, Mr. Mohammed. He has spoken about knowledge, he's spoken about financing in the industry, which I think is very important at this point. For you, can you share with us like some of your successes, and how you have been able to integrate proper financial management, and what some people here can also learn from you with respect to that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you have to structure your business to be a business. You have to separate your pockets from your business pockets, and probably good corporate governance structure, and also have good management system in place. So the model for running dairy business is no different from any model of running a successful business. Once you imbibe it, you will be able to be continuously viable and sustainable. So this is my advice to people. So that is that. Then, but before you go into it, as Mustafa said, there's need for you to do a very good feasibility study. You know the keywords to look out for. Whatever you're going into, is it technically feasible? Is it something that is doable? Do we have the technology to do it? And then look at the financial viability. Is it something that if I go into, I will make enough money to sustain the business going forward? Since there's no subsidy and there's no subvention. Then you look at the economic desirability. This is where the policies come in. There's micro and macro as well. What does the government encourage? Does this encourage technology transfer? Will it ultimately help the country save some good foreign exchange? And then the engagement of youth and women, the impact on the population. And so these are some of the things that you look out for before you engage in any of this business, knowing fully well that ultimately it has to be sustainable, and it has to be, which would bring me to the last point, the bottom line. If it's not profitable, you're not making money, it's not likely it's going to be continued. So you have to make a business case for anything you are engaged into, so long you are running a business. It will look as if it's a social corporate social responsibility, but it's not. As I always tell people, my relationship with my agrowers is a shared value where it's a win-win thing. They benefit, I benefit. So it's they produce, I encourage them. Whatever I do for them, I do boreholes sometimes in the community because I don't want them to move around. So if they go look for water, it will affect the animals and the milk yield will be low. So I do borehole not because I'm interested in the corporate social responsibility, but if at the end of the day what I do turns out to be beneficial to them, which some other people can take it as a corporate social responsibility, so be it. So I think this is a few points I will add on to what they've all said. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that has been very, very revealing. Thank you so much to our distinguished speakers, talking about structuring business properly, good corporate governance, understanding, doing proper feasibility studies, and focusing at the end of the day on profitability. I know Dr. Ikechi has his hand raised up, so I'd like you to.
Just something. I just wanted to add up something. Yeah, we know we've had this challenge with the Fulani cattle rearers issues. And I just felt that we are jumping it, and it's also very important for us to know why that problem came about. And of course, I know that our discussion, my fellow panelists have also mentioned issues on how to navigate that type of problem. But we are talking about business models. Like I told us about the International Conference on Business Models in Agriculture, which the conference which we organized at Kigali twice, this time around in Kenya. So when you talk about business models for dairy, can we present opportunities for hiring agreements for cow? Because there are times when such opportunities can also come about. Mustafa had mentioned about talking about the ecosystem, like from production, processing, distribution, and consumption. He mentioned about value addition, value chain. What about the supply chain? I had mentioned that also. Then, of course, business models within that value chain is very enormous, and it's highly profitable, even though so many people are afraid of dairy business. So thank you. I just wanted to.
Thank you, Dr. Ikechi. I'll deal the mic to you, Mr. Adetola.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I mean, it has been very, very engaging, and I can see that a couple of questions are coming up. And Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Mustafa, I want to take you on a little, right? And the reason is because I like several of our audiences, we are interested in business, right? And I was a bit elated when Dr. Kechi said something 50,000. And I was scared when you brought the figure to around 10 million per cow. I know that this is the reality. But regardless, we want to do business. And I also understand that there are several value chains across sectors. I mean, if you want to do poultry, if you want to do dairy, and I want to ask, with your experience with Mizube Farms and L&Z integrated farms, what are the value chains available? What are the value chains available within that dairy sector? And I'll let Dr. Kechi also speak on poultry sector. But first, I want our dairy people to speak first. What are the value chains available within this sector that we can easily pitch? I know you've spoken about aggregation, which is a very good one. Do I need to have heads of cattle before I produce yogurt? Do I need to have heads of cattle before I produce cheese? What are the value chains? How can we pitch in? Mr. Mustafa, I think you should go first, and Mr. Mohammed will speak after.
Okay. Well, to produce cheese or milk or yogurt, there is need for the cow, right?
Okay.
So the first value chain I will say is actually the production. So production means that you have to have the cows or the livestock, whatever, because I mean, the value chain is almost the same for most livestock industry, animal husbandry. But of course, there's just a few operational differences or upgrade or downgrade, depends on how you call it. So production is the first, having the animal, right? So, and of course, you have to decide whether you're going to have the animal for meat or for milk. So for me, I do more of the milk. So what I have now, I have the cows, I have the local, I have the foreign cows that I get the milk from. And from then you do the processing. That's my own chain. But no, usually before you get to processing, there's the aggregators for those that are not participating in the whole cycle. I'm involved in from like the production to market. So I have experience in all these different stages. So from my own practice, from production, I do the processing. Processing, of course, I have to get the milk from the cows and it goes into the processing room, cold chain. I have to have the cold chain as well so that I'll keep them at a certain temperature, And if it goes beyond or below a certain temperature, the milk goes off and I will not get the right product that I want. It's a loss to me. So each and every part of the value chain, I must be on top of my game. And production, I have to come to distribution. So distributing the yogurt as well, the yogurt or the milk or the cheese must be stored in a certain temperature, not frozen. So because people they say, okay, you can freeze and leave. No, you can't freeze yogurt. Once you freeze yogurt, you've actually killed the value of the yogurt. It's no longer yogurt. It becomes something else. It becomes a slush or and also, but that's another different. That can be another different actual aspect of the produce from milk. And also, so now to the market as well after distribution. So the market, you have to either you want to have your own shop or you have your own station to sell. And so you have to work with retailers, you have to work with wholesalers, you have to work with households as well. Because some households just like to get the milk directly or they get the cow. And our shelf life is our product is actually, we don't use that much preservative. So the shelf life cannot go beyond a month for my yogurt. And it has to be properly refrigerated. So these are all the value chain involved in my production line. But I mean, it depends on the system anybody else does also. It varies for each and every individual organization.
Thank you. Mr. Mohammed, sir.
Yeah, so talking about the actors in the value chain, or the actions and the value chain. So as we mentioned, we start from the upstream. This is where you have the production. And at the production level, the upstream, that's where you have the cow. So within the cow itself, you have the health practitioners. That's where there's a value chain there. You have the breeding, that is the artificial insemination and the genetics improvement. And you have the milking itself. That is the process of milking. It comes with a lot of gadgets as well as technology, and that's where the digital technology comes into play, and then improvement on the yield of milk itself. So when you talk from the upstream, you can see cow itself there are over 10 activities you can do around the cow. Then you talk of environment. As I said, there's challenge in the climate. So climate smart agric is being promoted all over the world. There's a way you can look at even climate smart dairy production as a process, and you can participate in that and you can become an expert and you make a good money. And then there is also the microclimate, that is the climate within the cow itself that you need to improve before the cow gives the maximum production. And then you have the macro, where it is overall above the animal but goes within the farm itself, that controls even the feeding, the pasture development. Then you have the feed and feeding. No, this is pasture. Somebody can go into pasture development as a business alone. And then we have the total mixed ration, where you can bring the pasture, you bring other ingredients and you mix, and then you operate like the kibbutz system that operates in Israel. That's another business. There's a digital interplay in all this that young people can come into. Then you come to the midstream, where you can, without even having a cow, can establish a milk collection center. You bring all the technologies that there is to see that milk is evaluated to the best, and then you can even segregate milk good for cheese, milk good for yogurt, milk good for butter, and for whatever, and then you can sell to the processors. You have the transport and the cold chain infrastructure that you can establish, because dairy is a cold chain infrastructure game. You can do that. It's also another digital opportunity for our young people. Then you have the downstream where you have the value addition, and then you have the preservation, and then you have the delivery to market. Your route to market, as Mustafa mentioned, could be decided. Is it you go? Is it through distributorship, or you go directly to households, or you go directly to retail shops? So there are lots of things. Each of this item of the value chain, we can further divide it into various areas of investment. So the opportunities are enormous.
Thank you very, very much. I like the way you've broken down every way any player can function or can find its footing. You talked about pasture development, talked about aggregation, talked about setting up new collection centers, talked about even their feeding and all sorts, right? This is very, very insightful. Dr. Kechi, would you want to lend your voice into this, but expanding
Yes.
beyond dairy to other classes of animals, right?
Yes, thank you. I was really fascinated by my panelists. They have been mentioning areas that we've been, talking about lately. There's this sustainable cold chain economy, which was developed by a British guy who, at the University of Birmingham, and he took it to Rwanda. So he has access to the government of Rwanda. But we're talking about business, and we are also looking at the food and agriculture systems. How do we, access markets? How do we break the challenges of the farmers, of people, the high cost of food and all of that, and still make business opportunity, creating opportunities? Now, going to the value chain for poultry. Yeah. Can I talk about the value chain in line with it? Of course, we know it's a network of actors, is a network of stakeholders who are within that system, that ecosystem of production, processing, distribution, and consumption. And and then of course the challenges which they face that affects their profitability or their efficiency or their sustainability over time. That is now, what are the value chain? After production, there are options for, about kilos, all those cold producing refrigerator, cold meats, poultry meats, and then we also have for those day-old chicks, production. We have those who are also supplying of inputs, and traders, and who are demanding the market. Of course, we know that is the force of demand and supply that operates in the market, and then also understanding that there is always a substitute. Like we are talking about dairy, and we are also looking at meat production, demand for protein, which of course it's the major element which dairy also supplies. Yeah, and we've seen economies that have prospered. They have their fresh milk, they have their meats. You also talked about the issue of food safety. Yeah, which of course is a major challenge with our business, because we are also talking about trade, not just producing and for domestication. We are also looking at international trade, also with overcoming trade barriers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikechi. I'll take this last one before I yield back to Elizabeth. And this is for all my panelists, just for the benefit of our audiences, right? And that's about, I want to go straight to markets. And I would also ask a very practical question, right? I know that Mezube did not start one. We just have the product. I'm sure that L&Z, I did not suddenly start seeing L&Z product. I'm sure I did not. I don't see products of people just start off in the market like that. But I'm looking at it from the current perspective of the demography of Nigeria, right? we're having a huge population of ourselves being youths, and I can say that our consumer. Are you seeing a change in our consumer preferences? When you look at the advanced countries of the world, you see varieties of different things. For example, your poultry products, you see it in arrays of different things, and your pork, your beef, and everything, right? Do we see the same thing? My first question: do we see the same thing happening in the livestock industry in Nigeria in general? I mean, across dairy, across poultry, across the piggery, the goatry. Are we seeing? Is there a change in consumer preference, and are we beginning to look at products in that sense? One. Secondly, when you started off as with your product and with your brand, how were you able to break into the market? Mr. Mohammed, you can go first.
Yeah, you see, Nigeria is a very interesting country for the simple fact that you can go to many countries and start a dairy business, and you know your competitors are real milk sellers. But in Nigeria, you're competing with things that are not even milk and are perceived by Nigerians to be milk, sometimes even injurious to their health. There's a recent exposition by an Irish newspaper where they said Nigeria is one place that all sorts of things are dumped on us in the name of milk. In fact, in their own country, you can't dare call it milk. And I'm talking about the fat-filled milk. And these are the most popular brands you have in Nigeria. And we are so brand focused that we don't even want to see milk in its real form. So when you're competing with such people, first, you need to get Nigerians to understand that when you want to buy milk, first you come to the milk, and let's at milk level, we can all talk. But when somebody is bringing something else, disguising it as milk, and your consumers believe it's a milk, and it's having even a premium position in the country, so how do you compete? How do you now come to specialization of even talking about, okay, this milk is this milk? In the first instance, you are competing with something that is not milk. We have to all come to that understanding and play the role we are supposed to play as advocates and as a country to make sure that we are giving. I see some funny things, some trash being promoted as good nutrition for the children, when in essence the thing that is good for the child has been removed completely, and they don't make any pretension about it. It's there boldly written. But will you be able to, you as a Nigerian, do you know the difference between a full cream milk and a fat-filled milk? Can you bring in your name that this is a brand that is fat-filled? I can tell you most popular brand is a fat-filled, and it's not milk. And in their country, they can't call it fat-filled milk. They will only call it fat-filled powder. So, and I challenge some of the elites, if I go into conversation, that please, and honestly, I am always taken aback that even the most educated person doesn't even know the difference. All he knows is that he goes and buy powdered milk and then reconstitute it into whatever and put it in his tea, and he feels he's taking milk, and then he gives them to his children. I think this is something that we need to know first before. So we don't have that luxury of competing at milk level yet.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Mustafa, we need any voice into this, please.
Yeah, so I totally agree with what my partner mentioned. But at the same time, I know from conversations and from being in the industry, a lot of people have actually contacted me trying to find out what we actually do. I've had people come to visit the farm to actually see that we actually producing what we say we produce, and until you come, that's when you know the difference. And when they taste the yogurt and with the other sort of drinks that Mr. Mohammed mentioned, they actually feel the difference. A lot of people don't know the difference between actually yogurt and yogurt drink, or so-called, what's it called? Delivery of a milk drink, So, but I believe there's a lot of like now with the promotion of health lifestyle in Nigeria, was organic products. There's been some sort of, let me say, change and improvement into the knowledge of the good milk. And I think brands like ours are being more patronized at the moment.
Okay. Dr. Kechi, would you lend your voice while I yield to Elizabeth after you?
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Mohammed Daka had earlier mentioned. We are talking about a system problem, and it has always been a challenge. But there are some derivatives, outside of the milk product. There are also cream. There are, butter, cheese, and mention yogurt. What about custard? What about frozen derivatives as well? And I wanted to mention kilishi because we are tilting towards dairy alone. I know that kilishi farming is getting very popular, is getting diversified also. So, because we can always unlock the potentials of cattle production, not just for the dairy, and what about the meat as well? So, and the demand is so high, and even this dry meat stuff, he mentioned about the health issues by Mustafa, and you can also attest to the fact that the rate of malnutrition is so high. How can a country that has experienced economic growth be grappling with poverty issues, be grappling with malnutritional issues, and also nutritional requirements for each categories of persons are different. So how do we navigate this? So policy comes in. So, and that's where when my fellow panelists mentioned about the policy issues, which must also be factored in. It can help out in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ekechi, and also thank you to Mr. Mustafa and Mr. Muhammad, who have really shared valuable contributions. We're hitting the home run, but I have some questions, and I know that people who are on our audience will be itching to ask the same question. So, having said all of these things, by the way, I learned something now. I mean, there's a difference between yogurt drink, and delivery of a milk drink. I didn't know that. But then, having said all of these things, I'm wondering, how then is someone who is a new entrepreneur who is wondering, so we've said all of these things now, I want to start. So are there ways to secure funding? Are there mentorship opportunities? And finally, what are some of the future trends and opportunities that you see that newer entrepreneurs can actually take advantage of to be competitive and profitable? So if you get my question, are there ways to secure funding? Are there mentorship opportunities? And are there any future trends that you are seeing that they can take advantage of to be competitive in this industry? So maybe I'll go.
Can I come in? Okay. So I think venture capital. No, everybody know we don't have it here, and going to the bank to lend to borrow money at 36% is equally a no-go area. And the few development finance institutions are not only one. I think is properly funded, but you have to join queue for it to come to your turn. Is a Herculean task. So as Mustafa had mentioned earlier, the best way is equity, and which can come through friends and family or life savings that you can use in establishing a business. Unfortunately, we all know from our basic economics of factors of production, land, labor, entrepreneur, and capital. And we know the source of this capital. So when you're able to get the three, I think the other one is just a matter of way and manner to establish it. So this is on the venture capital issue. The other question was on what? Sorry, please.
The other question was if we have mentorship opportunities and
mentorship opportunity. Yes, Mustafa and I belongs to an organization. Even though we're all competitors, but we've come to the realization there's a strength in coming together, and we collaborate to establish an association that we collaborate at the downstream, at the midstream, which you all need to source good raw material for a product. Then at downstream to your tent or Israel, everybody go and defend his brand in the market. That's where we compete. And this, I think, opportunity is open to everybody. All you need to do is register a business, establish a dairy business, if you like, and then you can join. I don't know if I am allowed to mention the name of the association, and you can always join. And that's where you can always have mentorship and the trends that are happening. We have newsletter that we issued very constantly. We have an office in Abuja with a sitting executive director and full staffing, and sometimes we get development partners intervention, and this we make sure it reaches those members that are really interested. So the association's name is Commercial Dairy Ranchers Association, which I happen to be the president, and it's in Abuja, and I think I can share the contact with you at the end of the session, and for everybody who's interested for mentorship, for keeping abreast of trends in the industry, and some supports where possible, and guides. I think it's always available at that organization. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ikechi has his hand raised up. Then I'll come to you, Mr. Mustafa. So please go ahead, Dr. Ikechi.
Okay, thank you very much. I just I didn't want to forget anything, but to add to what Mohammed Abubakar mentioned, I just remembered I consult for Nigerian Stock Product Research Institute and Professor Latif Sani. We work together on issues that touches on storage and cold chain economy stuff, and so all these solutions or options which have been raised, is this sustainable? So that's where we are going to now. Is this sustainable? Then coming back to funding solutions, funding options. The challenge is that people, young people are so discouraged. They say, there's no money. I know about the equity stuff. What if family cannot help? Now, most of the families are grappling with, trying to feed and eat and all of that. Then coming back to building your business, getting loans, getting funding solutions. Now, can I encourage persons? There are options for grants. I'm telling you, there are grant opportunities, but this time, how many people are open? How many people understand? How many people are connected to the media, to the social media, to not just to the social media? How many of us who are stakeholders, who are working with farmers? Because, like I belong to a lot of farmer groups, including dairy farming groups, and they keep advertising, posting stuff and all of that. How do we connect to the actual people who are on ground? So, and we have the issues with data. Some of them are not even registered. The dairy farmers, I'm sure Mohammed Daka will attest to the fact that we have problems with registering of farmers. But anyway, cattle and dairy farmers are more prominent. They are more stronger, because for you to own a cattle, you should be sort of registered. But how do we now connect to them, like some of the EU Horizon funding opportunities, UK aid, and those that come from African Development Bank, and even from the CBN, and so there are other, and sometimes they are diverted. So I hope the government will, like I have consulted for the UN twice at the facility with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and I had been advocating for the rights of farmers. Farmers are so afraid of forming cooperatives as well, as that will help. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ikechi. Mr. Mustafa, do you want to share your own knowledge on this, on how to secure funding, if there are mentorship opportunities, and what some of the future trends that you're seeing that newer entrepreneurs can take advantage of to become competitive and profitable in this sector?
Just to recap on this, I think this was already mentioned earlier. Of course, source of funding, you just have to dig deep and see the best way possible you can get. Like, is it loans? Is it equity? Where you're going to get it from, either from the developmental institutions, from banks. You know, I mean, it depends on your capacity at the end of the day. So like, I may not be able to afford a commercial loan, but someone else might be. It depends on the nature of this business, because you might have connections in what's it called? Something that would diversifying your portfolio. So you may own a regular oil company and you can own a dairy farm. So with that, the oil industry can support financing the dairy farm or whatever animal husbandry business you want to start. So that, and so you can have funding in different. This is just an example for me. And in terms of mentoring, I mean, mentoring, like I said, we are always open to partnering. It's unfortunate. A lot of people focus more on the competition and they shy away from sharing knowledge, coming together to have a conversation. Or new entrants will feel unwelcome by people if they want to come to organizations. I would say joining organizations help, but of course, if you can contact the farmers or the companies directly, just try to understand what they do, have a one-on-one conversation first before you go into any organization. That might give you an avenue, because either the farm or the company will tell you, okay, we are in social organizations that are helpful. I can refer you to certain individuals or the certain management of the organization that will guide you into this. But mentorship is always key. So the trend as well, I mean, like I said, like Mr. Mohammed mentioned earlier, we are competitors, but we are more partners than competitors. Nobody sees us behind the scenes. They only see the products outside. But what we do, we share knowledge, we travel together in different organizations, we try to purchase a car, we share resources, like in terms of human resource, in terms of when we get any medical health, vaccinations, when we have challenges, we discuss. We figure out, okay, how did you do to survive a particular outbreak? Are you going through this issue? Is your cow facing this same problem? What did you do? We've done this, it hasn't worked. What can we do? Where do we go? So sharing knowledge, and so I think you don't have to be on top to be a mentor. Even the one at the bottom, the local Fulani person, can actually tell you he's had this experience with his cow. This was what he did. You might not even need medication. He's just probably taking out for a walk, or just giving it clean water, you know. So one of the things I would say, to have a successful place, preventative measures are usually better than treatment. So if you're able to have clean water, you do the practices that you're supposed to practice, you may go even 2-3 years without even administering any medication for your animal, so long as you're doing the right practice. So I think that's the way to actually succeed in the industry. And as well, quality control of your products as well. And going on to the processing side now, quality control and keeping up to the trends as well, using the top-notch, you know, because you have to invest in the equipment as well and technology. That will actually reduce a lot of your problems. You save a lot of costs if you actually do that on treatment, because treatment is very expensive. Yes. Yeah. So I think I'll stop at that rather than going too far.
Yes, you've actually said a lot, and they're very, very important insights there. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, and thank you to our distinguished speakers who have really shared from their bank of knowledge. We are already running out of time, but we have time to take a few questions, because we know a lot of people have questions, and we can take these questions. If you could just drop it in the chat section, or you just indicate with your hand, and then people will just count and you can ask your questions.
Actually, Elizabeth, there are some questions in the chat room, and so I could read out some in the Q&A. I could read out some so that our panelists can speak on this. Somebody mentioned any material to aid knowledge of subject on animal husbandry. The contact information of the panelists, like we said yesterday, look out their names, go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place to connect professionally, right? Send out requests. Even while I was having this meeting, I've had people send me requests. I've had people reach out to different panelists as we speak. So reach out to them on LinkedIn. Now, this is a very technical question. Our herd primarily consists of Zebu/Bokolo, and which have low yield track quality. Where can we source jerseys or Gunsies locally? Are we able to cross these lines for better resilience and yield and quality? Mr. Mustafa, I think you should speak to that.
Yes, So Maize Bay Farm is a very good place to source for these foreign breeds because we're into crossbreeding, and we've seen our crossbreeds actually that have gotten improvement into becoming herdier than the foreign breeds. So like most of the, like I can say, for example, a Friesian cow is more a full Friesian cow is more susceptible to stay in the European area, cold conditions. While here we have rainforest here. As much as we have the Friesians, so we were able to cross them with our local Bocolo cows. And the F1s and the F2s, if you see their result, they're actually very good. In fact, they are as hardy as the local cows, but they give you as much yield as the Friesian because it's not just a day. So the breeding takes time. It's not just a matter of a day, to be honest. To have a good breed, you have to have a plan, proper plan, and it takes a number of years, like 4 years minimum, to get a very good breed that would give you great yield that you would want. So yeah,
Okay.
so we have access. We can have access to these breeds with us.
Okay, thank you. Debo also asked a question around he's in the southern part of country and he needs wheat straw. Where can he get wheat straw? And another question talked about his rearing cows, what type of food and drugs. No, there will be a disclaimer. He's an anonymous person, and this is a disclaimer. I'm not sure anybody will read out to you buy this drug or buy this. We can't do that on this, right? You need to contact an expert, a veterinarian, for that. Is the 10 million per cow of sale or cost of raising a cow from calf to marketable age? These are hybrids. I mean, these are foreign breeds, and definitely the cost of bringing in the cow itself, it's really expensive. So it's not the cost of raising from calf to marketable age. But I'm sure that Mr. Mustafa may share some light. I just want to touch on all the questions because of our time. Can you share more light on aggregation? I think Mr. Mustafa will speak on this. How can a Fulani herdsman who see livestock production from cultural traditional point of view be assisted to transit into a business by organizing the enterprise as such? Mr. Mustafa may touch lightly on this, and Dr. Ikechi to may talk lightly on this. What are the names of the organizations of the gentlemen that are speaking? Mr. Abubakar is from L&Z, the Integrated Farms, and Mr. Mustafa is from Mezube Farms. And other questions that keep dropping your questions, I'm sure that we'll answer as much as possible. The greatest challenge facing many actors in dairy value chain is lack of regulation. Mr. Mustafa, can you just touch on some of the things that we read out in the question? Somebody mentioned around the Fulani herdsmen, just mildly. I have my reasons for saying we touch on it mildly, and more or less like asking like, is it possible to aggregate them into such a point that we begin to we do a business from that point of view? And somebody also requested that you expand on the concept of aggregation for milk collection. Thank you, sir.
So personally, I will speak on the breeds of the cows. I think Mr. Mohammed Awakar has a better knowledge of aggregation because I'm not involved in aggregation yet.
Okay.
So yeah, for of course, the 10 million naira, yes, is actually the cost of the cow for purchase. But I mean, we have different stages of the cows. It depends on what stage you want. We have the calves, we have the heifers, we have the fully grown pregnant ones. So it depends on the ranges. And so I mean, of course, it's expensive though. And so these are all things that they have to look into consideration. The Fulani herdsmen, I think I'll pass it on to Mr. Abubakar to give that because he's the person taking part on aggregation, and it will shed more light on the process.
Okay, Mr. Abubakar, will you speak on this, please? Aggregation. There was a question on YouTube for us to expand on aggregation. What is the concept, and how do we manage it regardless of our location, either here in the northern part or here in the southern part of the country? You're on mute, sir. You may need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So aggregation means collecting milk from various sources and then directing it to a processing center. That's just what it means. So now you can play part in either collecting from various milk collection centers and then establish a bulking center yourself where you can now transport using cold chain vehicle refrigerated vehicle to the developer, to the processing center, or you can be the owner of a milk collection center itself, where milk are brought in from milk collection points. So the chain is, if the milk is where the cows are milked is the household, then it's taken to a milk collection point. At that milk collection point, it could be collected massively to a milk collection center. At milk collection center, it is tested, graded, and then bulked into a milk collection tank. And that can stay for a day, 2, 3, 4 days. Then a truck will come once in a while, once in a week, evacuates to the processor. So you can be the owner of the milk collection center, you can be the owner of the truck, and you can be the processor that will offtake all this. So aggregation, in a nutshell, is what it entails. So you can play in any of this part as an aggregator, and then you just put a little margin. That's your own benefits in the aggregation business. We've been doing this for the last 20 years and successfully too. And I'm happy to say that a lot of companies have taken after us. We pioneered it in Nigeria. And even the multinationals that are doing it, they have taken it after us. Some have come to study how we're doing it. We've had our ups and downs. We've fallen and stood up, but at the end of the day, we perfected it now that we've even gone across Kano State to other states to do the milk aggregation and milk collection. It forms bulk of our raw material. You are muted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. Adetola, would you want to continue?
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth. So there was a question for Dr. Aguba, Dr. Ikechi, right, to shed more light on funding. I think I would recommend that the person reaches out to you. I know you are very, very active on LinkedIn, right? The person can reach out to you for more information on that. There are also questions around greenhouse. We had our sessions on crop yesterday. Questions on rabbits and other classes or other species of animal. Yes, we try to touch on this when we commence the conversation, but we also recognize the expertise of our panelists. But regardless, I remember that Mr. Mustafa mentioned that the whatever concept we want to talk about across the value chains can also be replicated across the different species of animal. Now, can we, Elizabeth, we lead our panelists to take their final words, their final contributions before we wrap up the session.
Absolutely. I know just to quickly apologize for some of the questions that we were not able to take. Please reach out to the panelists directly. They are more than willing, and they're excited to take your questions and give you answers. We would love that. And you can also follow up the conversation on the PSAG_Nigeria on Instagram, on Twitter. You can just keep up the conversation. They ask you questions and somehow we'll get your answers across to you. So I'd like to take your final words, and I'll let me start with Dr. Ikechi on this one.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to feature here. I developed a strategy for rebranding agriculture for young people. And it's actually a model which also touches on the UN SDGs. So, and today's meeting has been very interesting. It's been very insightful. It's been very informative. And, working and discussing, featuring with fellow panelists who are practitioners in the dairy industry. And when I was trying to put 1 and 2 together, I discovered that the brain reengineering strategy can also be adapted for the dairy industry, trying to encourage young people to see a future there. And of course, I've also registered it in the Library of Congress, and I'm trying to see how the Nigerian government can also benefit from this. But interestingly, these days, I will always encourage young people who want to leave Nigeria to reconsider and also have a plan, and not just agriculture is the future. Agriculture is the primary sector, is a real sector. Every sector depends on the agriculture sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikechi. Over to you, Mr. Mustafa.
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting me to this. This has been very knowledgeable with these experts that I have as my panelist members. And also I'd like to stress that anyone I mean, anyone at different age, either youth, old, you can actually play part in the dairy industry. You just have to persevere and stay focused and have interest in knowledge seeking, you know. And also, it's lovely to know that there's been the introduction of Ministry of Livestock right now, which will give possible rise into animal husbandry focus. Because back under Ministry of Agriculture, when there was little or no focus on the livestock industry, but now I believe with the new industry, we are likely going to have better support and better knowledge and what's it called, exponential participation into the animal husbandry sector. And once again, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. And finally, you, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you, fellow panelists. So what I will always tell people is there's always this adage that in agri generally, so it is in livestock. The best time to start is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So what it means, it's not late. You can venture into it, as Doctor had mentioned, that it's very lucrative. You don't have to japa. You can stay and kill it with us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all our wonderful panelists for being so awesome. That's the simple word. You've shared so much insight. You've shared your knowledge with us today. Very valuable contributions. And I'm sure we're better for that. I've learned a lot. And I know everyone who has stuck around from the start of this session up until now, I've learned a lot. So we thank you so much. And we wish you a wonderful day ahead. This session was brought to you by the Public Sector Advisory Group Nigeria, that's PSAG Nigeria, and the British American Tobacco Nigeria Foundation, and implementing partners Business Day. And that's about it. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and also my amazing co-moderator, Mr. Adetola Onielo. I know he wants to say something.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I only wanted to add that for the benefit of our audience, I know that as the program goes on, there's going to be a quiz, and just to keep us abreast about what it is that we're talking about, and the person that wins, that emerges as the winner, can have a one-on-one 30-minute session with any of the panelists that we're going to feature today. The panelists have been discussed with, and I know that the people are very, very much willing and ready to share their ideas with you. So let's keep up the conversation and continue to enjoy as we move on. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And don't forget to keep the conversation going on social media. That way we can track it. That way you can ask your questions. That way you can also connect with the panelists and connect with, you know, we're talking about mentorship and all of that. So you can find opportunities for that. Our next session will be on the business of agro processing and value addition. And this will start exactly at 11 a.m. up until 12:30 p.m. That's West African time, Nigerian time. Thank you very much from wherever you're joining us from. We really appreciate your time today, and we hope that this has been worth your time. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.